Games Workshop want us to paint a Death Korps of Krieg army, so much so they've sent us the brand new launch box and multiple boxes of Krieg troops. So we're gonna do that today.
So our challenge is to come up with a really cool and vibrant scheme for this Death Korps of Krieg force.
But it needs to be fast and efficient because we only have 6 hours.
It's
tabletop time!
Wait a minute! That is literally impossible, and you all know it. There's no way we can build and paint these miniatures in that amount of time. So I actually got a bit of a head start. I have built all of the minis from this, and we're gonna take you back and show you the journey. So the first thing I wanted to tackle was just some Kriegers. I needed to know how these models felt. I wanted to go with the classics. Now, Death Korps infantry are only available in Kill Team boxes now, which means they come at a price premium because these units are very cheap in points cost, but very expensive in dollars to put on the table. Now, while these Kill Team boxes are amazing and have a bunch of extra options, and I do love that, one thing I noticed in starting to build what is ostensibly a Horde army is just how many parts they have now. The part count isn't necessarily hugely higher, but it's really how they go together. Back when I was younger, guardsmen were a front and a back of a torso, a pair of legs, a pair of arms, and a head. You could pretty much clip out a pile of arms, a pile of legs, and a pile of torsos, build them, and just throw them all together in whatever configuration you wanted. These new kits do not allow that. Every single model specifically attaches to different parts, and the part count has moved from 6 or 7, I'd say up to about 10 to 12 per guardsman. So this leads to some really cool and dynamic poses, but for building a Horde army, it makes the process incredibly slow because every single model you have to cross-check that you're grabbing the right legs with the right torso bit and then cleaning them up so they fit properly, because all of the seams, it becomes a bit of a complicated mess. So it actually took me 2 full work days to build 3 squads of Krieg Guard, as well as the models from the starter box. Now, the Krieg look awesome, and I did try and build pretty much every unique option in this kit, but I will say I noted with the poses and specific configurations of parts that did mean that after building 30 guardsmen, there were pretty much no options left for uniqueness. I was gonna have to move into duplication because things like the medic equipment, things like the Vox operator, all of these fit with specific poses and aren't particularly interchangeable. So if you want to have a soldier with a grenade launcher in every squad, that soldier is going to be basically identical in every squad, rather than just being able to give the grenade launcher arms to whatever model you want. With that all said, there are pros and cons, and I do think that the squads look absolutely gorgeous. The new models, the poses, the options are stunning, but these have been around for a while. What you probably want to see is the brand new Death Korps. So in previous references, we've accidentally pronounced the Death Korps of Krieg as the Death Corps of Krieg. I'd like to put to you that it's spelled with a K, so it's different, and instead of calling them the Death Korps, maybe you could try and field a more metal name. The Death Corps of Krieg! Because that's cooler. Is that what people who like metal like, Vaughn? Is that how metal works? Moving on! So we have plans for this army, and those plans don't involve a bunch of cavalry. So we're gonna be building everything in this kit except for all the horses. So I'm gonna start with the engineers. These came together pretty similarly to the other soldiers. Similar number of components, maybe a few more, and they're quite a nice kit. Although I was surprised to see a guard equivalent squad in a squad count of 5. And I can't wait until they are full price and the same price as 10 infantry, and it's like $100 for 5 guardsmen. That will be a new low for Games Workshop pricing schemes. Following on from that, I built the artillery, which is effectively like building a massive field gun kit if you've built the field ordnance batteries from the other guard releases. But I did go with the quad-barreled thud gun. The thud gun is iconic to the Death Korps, so for me, there was really no other option. Finally, building up the character model was a bit of a treat. He's a fantastic sculpt, and I like pretty much everything about this model except for the devilish horse grippers. They can keep them in my nightmares. So we have 35 models, an artillery, and a cavalry character, and to tie them all together, I'm gonna do some basing. And here's a really cool tip for your Death Corps armies. You can use some balsa wood. It's a really soft wood, really cheap to get in modeling stores, really thin, and use a sculpting tool to just scrape heavier wood grain through it. If you glue these haphazardly around the bases of your Death Corps, then you will of course get a fantastic impression of some of the cladding that goes down in the bottom of trenches. I then used a mud technical paint to fill all the gaps between these, and with this simple addition of a handful of rocks, this is a really great, efficient, quick way to get trench bases across a whole army, and it's incredibly cost effective as well. So now that they're done and drying, the whole team is gonna paint them, and I really hope Murray and Jen have come up with an awesome and efficient paint scheme because that is their specialty.
I think that we should go with something that's a bit more historically Krieg, as history in Warhammer goes, but we'll add our own flair. I have an idea.
Okay.
Okay, I have built the models, I've assembled them, I based them. How are we painting them? I'm going to leave it to the masters of quick painting.
We are going to paint them very much like the cover art of the Siege of Rax.
Yep.
Sort of got this sort of nasty khaki tinted overcoats with a bit of green in them. That'll give a nice sort of off color. Definitely want to keep the red stripes and some like gold trim. That'll be really nice. And then we'll go for that sort of beaten black metal armor.
All right, we have a plan. Execute it. Let's do it.
Execute Order 60.
To the spray huff room.
Now, as three people who generally really like painting centerpiece showcase miniatures, I'm going to say that I don't think a lot of us like batch painting.
Does anyone like batch painting? That is the question.
Look side-eyed at Jen.
I mean, I don't mind it. I think that there's a sense of reward once you've finally finished everything and having like a hoard of something, but it is a mind-numbing process.
Yeah, you like the pile of the finished thing at the end.
I think for me, batch painting really goes against everything I do enjoy about painting. I like to do quite specific small projects, but occasionally there is definitely the time, maybe there's a tournament coming up and you need to finish an army where batch painting is important.
It's definitely improved by doing it in a group. If you're going to batch paint, do it with a friend.
Yes, do what we've done today. There is such an energy gained by community painting. You can scream and moan at each other and relate to each other on what sucks and what doesn't about the process. But something that can really speed the process up is some good foundational colors.
Yeah, so the secret to batch painting is to do as little as possible. Like broad strokes, get stuff done. If you can paint 80% of a miniature with just like some aerosols or an overbrush, then all you need to do is like all the details. And that's generally the fun part for a lot of people.
Murray, you've often used multiple sprays. You use different colored sprays from different angles, and
Yes.
a lot of people always ask about this and why you do it. Can you just explain what you're doing here?
Sure, all right, to answer the question, Murray, why are you the way you are? It's a lot of classical art theory. It doesn't really matter if the colors make sense. This guy's handkerchief shouldn't actually be that tone of blue. It doesn't matter. As long as you're making something interesting for the eye to look at, you can get away with a lot of things. So I like to really do this sort of graffiti gradient sort of thing all over a miniature. And so that is going to be what I'm doing here today. I'm going to spray under a red because I love that color. It gives a real warmth to the miniature, particularly if it's a living creature, and it will also contrast with the cold colors that are going to go on top of it. Then I'm going to go with green to get that really sort of murky, grungy, people walking around in a trench sort of vibe. And then I'm going to go for the actual colors that we're going to use after it, like all the khakis and stuff. And that is the secret, I guess. So I have now sprayed all of our miniatures. So I've got the undertone of the reds, and then I've got that nice zenithal, the green on top. So this is going to go onto the fatigues, and I'm going to see what it's going to be like airbrushing it on. There's going to be an experiment. Do I overbrush or do we airbrush? That is the question. So I have airbrushed actually a couple of these guys just to get the right vibe and the right tone. I haven't dry brushed or stippled any of them because, quite frankly, I've got the effect that I want here. This is a really nice smooth gradient, and I don't think that I would get any better effect through dry brushing. So I'm just gonna go with that. And this is more of a gut feeling. I've just decided we're gonna airbrush.
When you do a project like this, there will be areas you do need to have in quite starkly different colors. For this, we wanted to minimize the amount of areas that we were painting, so we chose brown. The leather straps, the boots, the underside of the coat, the collar, the buttstocks of the guns, all of these areas, as well as the gas masks, we could paint in the same color of brown. This minimizes the colors we're needing to overpaint, but it will allow for some really nice distinct areas of difference between those undertones.
So another area we wanted to paint was the metallics on these models to make sure that they popped out. While painting them, we wanted to make sure that the undercolors that Murray had done previously still showed up on the armor. By stippling on the highlights roughly, you can completely transform how this armor is going to look. On top of this, we applied a wash of black Templar, which completely transformed it into a dark metallic.
The combination of using a really bright highlights as well as this contrast paint allows this part of the model to share all of the values and the work you've done with those undertones that will carry across the whole model, but also make it a complete contrast and transform it. It stands out, it looks really strong, strong, but the amount of work done is almost none. This was some really rough stippling of metallics and then just a sloppy wash of contrast paint.
Woohoo, no work. See, I was right.
The metallic armor and metallic areas on these Krieg infantry probably took about 1 minute, maybe 2 minutes per model. This is super efficient work that can only be done thanks to those undertones.
If you didn't know, the best way to support the channel right now is to back our backer kit, which is a crowdfunding project to create the Kindred of the Abyss, an absolutely awesome range of STL miniatures that you can print and use in your games at home. We have hit all but our last stretch goal, which means for under $30 US, you are getting 7 unique units for an army or for tabletop games. We've had people say they'd be perfect for Heretic Submariners, for Trench Crusade or boarding actions, Kill Team, so many different things. And we'd love to see the land sub, our final stretch goal, this massive, ridiculous thing we've just finished concept art on, become realized. So go back the project. It really supports tabletop time and get some awesome minis while you're at it. Thank you.
So now that we've applied all the browns to the different areas to sort of mark those out as different materials, we now need to make them pop out a bit more. So I'm gonna go and start highlighting all of the browns using a fairly strong color because again, I want that to stand out a lot. I'm not gonna worry too much about blending at all. I'm just going to try and get those peaked highlights. But one technique you can also use to even further separate all these different browns from each other is to wash some of those with brown or a black wash, which will give a really leathery appearance, quickly turn into something a bit more distinct with just a simple wash.
So we have a question to ask. Are GW models becoming too detailed and is batch painting becoming harder?
As a Chaos Space Marine player, this is something that has been in the forefront of my thoughts for quite a long time. As Chaos models gained more trim and then trim became leather pouches and leather pouches became patches of weird cloth and skin, and then they started growing things out of all kinds of orifices, models have become more detailed, but not only more detailed, I would say more textured with different elements on the models. Gone are the days where it's just simple armor, cloth, and skin. There's now all these other things on them.
Yeah, I think this is also further exacerbated by all these kill teams, which are brilliant, but damn, if you've got like each individual model in a kill team, like we've got grenadiers and medics and guys with medals all over them, grappling hooks, ropes, trip mines, just there's so many extra things. And if you want to make things stand out, then it probably requires a lot of attention and extra detail.
This can really complicate the process when batch painting, because now there are all of these elements that you have to make decisions on. Are you going to ignore the 15 implements hanging from the bags and belt, or are you going to try and find ways to incorporate them into the other colors you're already painting, which I did in a few cases. Some of the tools I'd use the exact same metal painting technique as I did the armor. Overall, this makes for a fantastic experience when painting models to display. For batch painting, I think this is definitely a complication, and I would say without a shadow of a doubt, it has gotten harder.
One way to get around this is to only pick the interesting things that you want to focus on. And so that's what I've done here. I've decided to make the gloves stand out. Personally, because I think as humans, we want to look at the parts that define our own humanities. We look at humans' faces and hands to see how they're communicating. So we are of course going to put time and effort into painting the faces and like the eye lenses, but I'm also going to pick out the hands, and I've chosen a red. I'm going to do sort of a really bright red leather gloves. It's going to be extremely extra, but I think it's going to really pay off and look amazing.
No, Murray, it works perfectly. You see, I am the resident lore nerd, and I know that the Death Corps of Krieg are constantly guilty. They have this sense of betrayal that they did, and they're basically repentant for the sins of their ancestors. So I thought the red gloves worked really well as the blood on their hands.
It's the blood on the hands,
It's literally their guilt.
It was all planned.
Hands. Yes, it's genius.
The script, this is all faked.
Overall, I think, Murray, this was a fantastic choice because the areas that we maybe skimmed over or didn't paint, there's some cables and things on backpacks that we totally didn't pick out. It's irrelevant. You don't even notice them. Your eyes go to the face, the eyes go to the hands. They see the things that we need to see to understand what the model is doing, and it really doesn't matter what's in their pockets.
How are we going, Jen? Struggling? Yep. It is like that. We're doing so well. We've done all this in just like a couple hours, but like it's still not enough. That's the issue. I think we're actually gaining momentum. Like we've gotten a lot done in a small amount of time. I think we're doing well, but the clock is still scary. All right, back to work.
But it is not only the problem of are they more detailed, I also question, is it getting harder to paint Games Workshop armies because they're getting bigger? In doing my Alpha Legion project, I realized people were asking, oh, how many points was your army? And I look at my like 20 models or 30 models on the table, 2,000 to 3,000 points. And we actually looked, you brought in the Guard 3rd edition Codex, and we were having a look. And while the squad cost is quite similar for a squad of guardsmen, it's about 60 points. If you buy a plasma gun, you buy a sergeant power weapon.
Melt gun, 10 points.
15
plasma,
points.
15.
So with all of those, your squads ended up running like 100 points. And when you go a 60, 65 point squad today versus a 100 point guard squad several years ago, that adds up, even in a horde army.
Yeah, for sure. And like that gave a bit more to the sort of strategy of the economy of choosing your army, which I personally miss. This is a lot of models. This is like 35 models. Guesstimate how many points that is probably worth.
I think that this huge amount of effort we've gone into painting 35 models, 5 combat engineers, 3 squads of Krieg infantry, a heavy artillery, my guess is roughly 350 points. Maybe 400.
Yeah, I believe that.
Recommended game size, 2,000 points.
Yeah.
So with 3 people spending about 6 hours each painting these models, which at home would be 1 person spending 18 hours. So really a good solid week of dedicated hobby to doing this, you will have painted maybe 15 to 20% of an actual army. So these armies are incredibly cheap. It's definitely prevalent in horde armies, but it's not unique to that. Jen, your army used to be an elite army, but it's now like a horde army, Sisters of Battle.
Well, I love painting my Sisters of Battle. They can be a bit like discouraging because they're so detailed. So I'll often paint like a squad maybe and be happy. But then the part of me kind of hates the fact that I'm like, I have to paint so many more of these. Well, I actually prefer painting Kill Team or like Warcry warbands because at least I'm like, I can play with them and I have something that I've worked really hard on versus an entire army.
Contrasting putting more effort into a project, the bases were a simple dry brush where we picked out the color of the dirt and we picked out the color of the wood. And there was a little brown wash on there to darken everything down, a black trim around the outside, and copious amounts of it was weathering pigments. Weathering powders because it makes everything look good.
Vlog update time. How we going, guys?
I hate batch painting. Yay, I hate batch painting.
But we like doubled the amount of miniatures that we finished.
Yeah, they're looking pretty good, to be honest.
Yeah,
for the speed we're doing them, it's pretty good.
Yeah, we've done like all of the grunt work and now it's just all the detail stuff and all that good stuff.
Delirious.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, I think we've definitely got the batch painting fever. Good work, team.
Yeah.
Help!
Thank you to our amazing patrons for your support. One of the perks to signing up for our Patreon is we shout you out when you join. So thank you to J.A. Moverjelly, Ben M, Implausible Knight, Josh Albritton, and Tomo00. We've also got a Patreon exclusive Discord weekly behind the scenes, and we love to chat with you all there. So make sure to check out the Patreon, links are in the description. Outro! That's it.
Oh.
That was the outro.
Oh, that was easy. All right, I'm going.
Don't forget, please follow our backer kit. We're looking at our final stretch goal. Yeah, if we meet the stretch goal, we're gonna see if we can come up with some really cool stuff. We're gonna put some votes up. Sorry, that's just Murray's anime ringtone.
Wow, what the hell?
So please go support the backer kit. Like and subscribe if you like this video, and tell us if what you thought. We did something a bit different with the way we made this video. Obviously, you know, people haven't been loving some of our recent videos. We're trying to work on what we want to produce. So thank you again to Games Workshop for sending us the army. They were really keen for us to make a Deathcore army. Hopefully you like the paint scheme too, and you found something useful. But I feel like the backer kit thing, go back the backer kit, support the channel, and we'll help maybe get that land sub happening. We're really excited about that. We've got more to share, as I said earlier. And next week we have Alpha Legion Part 2, where I am doing a huge conversion job, completely transforming Chaos Obliterators. It's
back.
really fun. See you all, everyone, in the next one.
Oh, bye.